The lights in the living room stayed on all night. I know because I sat across from them in the kitchen, in complete darkness, listening to the ceiling fan above me creak every 13 seconds. She forgot to turn them off before she left. Or maybe she didn't forget. Maybe she wanted me to see how carefree she could be, even in the final hours before the lie would shatter. On the counter sat a wine glass, still half full, with her lipstick smudge curved along the rim. Scarlet. Same shade she wore when we met. I used to love that color. Now it looked like blood on glass. Her coat was still hanging by the door. The one I bought her last winter, soft gray wool, lined with satin, she never noticed. I used to imagine her wearing it while walking through our neighborhood with our future kid. I even pictured her pulling it tightly around herself during those breezy October evenings. But she left it behind. Not just the coat. Everything. At 2:41 a.m. I opened the drawer next to the sink, pulled out the crumpled receipt I found in the trash 2 days earlier, and stared at it again like maybe, this time, the words would rearrange themselves into something innocent. They didn't. Oceana Lux Villas, Miami Beach. 3 nights. 1 king bed. Private jacuzzi. There was a name under the guest profile, but it wasn't hers. It wasn't any of her bridesmaids either. It was Jackson, spelled with an X, like some kind of try-hard. She told me the bachelorette trip was going to be low-key. Said they were just going to a cabin near Asheville. Said there'd be no reception, so I probably wouldn't hear from her much. She smiled when she said it. That same exact smile she gave me when I drove her to the airport. That same exact smile she gave when she kissed me on the cheek and whispered, "Don't cry too much, you big softy." She knew I wouldn't say no. She knew I wouldn't push. She knew I was too scared of seeming possessive, too broken from the last time I raised a suspicion and got branded paranoid. I should have asked. I should have said something. But instead, I helped carry her pink suitcase down the stairs, loaded it gently into the back of her friend's car, and waved as they drove off into the night. Around 3:10 a.m., I finally unfolded the letter. Not hers, mine. The one I'd been writing for the past 4 hours, sentence by sentence, each word digging into me like splinters under skin. It wasn't angry. That would have been easier. It wasn't pitiful. That would have been familiar. It was something else. Something quiet and final, like the sound of a closing door in a house no one will ever return to. I signed it with a single letter. Not even my initial. Just L. Then I folded it twice, tucked it beneath the pillow on her side of the bed, and turned off the light in the kitchen. The living room lights stayed on. I left them that way. She came back smelling like hotel soap and a lie reheated in her throat. I heard her heels clicking down the hallway long before she saw the envelope. She didn't call out for me. She didn't say, "I'm home." She walked in like a stranger entering someone else's apartment, cautiously, eyes darting around, half expecting something to be wrong. And something was. Everything. I had taken my time with the place before I left. Not to destroy it, no. I wanted to make it quiet, clean, emotionally sterile. I folded the laundry, put her tea mugs back in the cabinet, even placed her favorite fuzzy socks on the edge of the bed like I usually did in the winter. But what I didn't leave, me. No shoes by the door, no hoodie on the coat rack, no charger cord snaking across the floor like usual. The home still looked lived in, just not by me anymore. And then she saw the pillow. That stupid gray pillow she always slept on, because she said it was the coldest one, like she needed it to balance her fiery dreams. She stared at it for a while. The letter was sticking out just barely, enough to catch her attention, not enough to scream. She sat down on the edge of the bed, hands on her lap like a child about to be scolded, and pulled it out. And then she read it. All 4 pages. I watched her from the security camera feed on my phone. The one she forgot was synced to the old Google account we used when we moved in together. She never remembered to disable it. Her lips moved as she read. No tears, no gasps, just the occasional clench of her jaw, and once, her hand gripping the duvet so hard I thought she might rip it. And when she finished, she didn't crumble. She smiled. Not the same smile she wore before the trip. This one was smaller, tighter. The kind of smile people wear when they're cornered but still think they can charm their way out. She pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, and brought it to her ear. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I saw her mouth the name, Jackson. Then she went to the mirror, fixed her hair, and walked out of the frame. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought, that's the worst of it, right? But the next morning, at exactly 7:02 a.m., I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It said, "You should have kept your mouth shut. You just made this very, very messy." No name. No context. I read it 10 times. Then I looked out the window of the motel I was staying in. One of those places with vending machines that sell toothbrushes and walls that hum like they're holding a secret. My car was parked across the lot. Someone had slashed the front passenger tire. Deliberate. Clean. No mess. Just like the letter I left. I didn't call the cops. What was I going to say? Hey, my fiancé cheated on me, and someone keyed the word rat into my side mirror? No, that's not the kind of story people believe. Not when you're a soft-spoken guy who sells antique lights and reads too much into facial expressions. Instead, I checked out early. Found a diner that didn't smell like cigarettes and grease, and sat in the back with a coffee I didn't want. And that's when I saw it. She had posted a photo. Not on her personal account. No, that would be too obvious. It was her burner. The one I only knew about because of a dumb accident last year when she sent a screenshot to the wrong group chat. The picture was of a candlelit dinner. A new ring on her finger. Not the one I gave her. And the caption? Sometimes we meet our forever later than we expected. 148 likes in 10 minutes. No one knew it was about me. No one except her and me. I didn't respond to the post. I didn't comment. I didn't like it. I didn't even screenshot it. I just stared at the screen until the letters blurred and the caption became this meaningless string of lies dressed up as poetry. Sometimes we meet our forever later than we expected. She wrote that like she was auditioning for a Hallmark movie. And there it was, her hand, tilted toward the camera just enough to flash a diamond I'd never seen before. Bigger than the one I gave her. Probably fake. Definitely loud. The kind of ring you pick when you're trying to prove something. But what got me the most wasn't the caption or the ring or the carefully filtered lighting. It was the glass of wine in the background, half drunk. She never drank red. She said it stained her teeth. I used to avoid ordering it just to make her more comfortable. And now here it was, front and center. Someone else's drink. Someone else's night. Someone else's version of her. I waited 3 days before I made contact. Not because I was scared, not exactly. I needed time to think. To understand what I was actually feeling. It wasn't just anger. It wasn't jealousy either. It was something more clinical. Like watching your house burn down and realizing you were the one who left the stove on. I booked a room in a different part of the state, used a prepaid phone, created a brand new email. No trace. No fingerprints. If she wanted to play it like a game, fine. I'd learn the rules. And I wouldn't blink. On the 4th day, she sent me a voice memo. She didn't call. She didn't text. She sent a voice. Her voice. Hey, she said casually, like we hadn't detonated our future. I read your little letter. Very poetic. Very dramatic. You always had a flair for that. I guess now you're just a ghost with a keyboard. Hope you're enjoying your little meltdown. I've moved on. I'd recommend you do the same. Or don't. Whatever keeps your tiny brain busy. I replayed it 4 times. I memorized the cadence. The sigh at the beginning. The slight tremble at the end that told me she wasn't as calm as she pretended to be. She wanted me to reply. She needed it. Because as much as she tried to sell the narrative that she'd moved on, she still took the time to record her voice. She wanted control back. She wasn't going to get it. So instead of replying directly, I logged into our shared streaming service, the one we never unlinked, and changed every profile name. From Jessa to Liar. From Guest to I Know. From Kids to Ask Jackson. And I changed the main one, the one she always used, to just, "You'll regret this." Then I logged out. 2 hours later, I got a second message. No voice this time. Just words. Okay, you're being childish now. Grow the F*** up. I was going to be kind. I was going to let you go clean. But if this is how you want it, fine. That's when it shifted. That's when I realized she didn't just want me gone. She wanted me erased. She wasn't angry because I disappeared. She was angry because I didn't collapse. I didn't beg. I didn't fight her for the ring or the apartment or the explanation. I walked out and took the silence with me. And silence, real silence, was the one thing she couldn't weaponize. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Because that weekend, I found the envelope. Not the one I wrote. The one she'd been hiding. And inside it was something that made my blood run cold. The envelope was tucked between the pages of a cookbook we never used, Southern Summer Suppers. The one her aunt gave us 2 Christmases ago. It still had the tag on it. I only noticed it because I was flipping through the shelf I kept meaning to pack, grabbing random things like a ghost in my own life. I pulled the book free, and it fell open on its own, spine cracked, and there it was, a pale blue envelope with no name. No return address. Just a single grease stain near the corner like it had been handled carelessly. It didn't belong. We weren't the kind of people who left things like that around. At least, I wasn't. For a second, I didn't touch it. I just stared at it like it might start whispering. Then I picked it up, slowly, deliberately, like you do when you realize you're holding something that was never meant to be found. Inside were two things: a folded note on thick paper and a photo. Let me start with the photo. It was her, Jessa, standing in a hallway I didn't recognize, laughing, barefoot, wearing nothing but a men's button-down shirt, not mine, and holding a glass of champagne. The timestamp in the corner said 11:46 p.m., 3 weeks before her bachelorette trip. The angle was low, like someone had taken it from the hip. Candid. Private. But that's not what stopped my breath. What did? Was the tiny blur in the bottom left corner of the image. A mirror. And in that mirror, barely visible, was the reflection of a man holding the phone. His face half hidden. But his wrist? His wrist had my watch on it. I stared at that detail until my eyes watered. How? Why? It didn't make sense. I hadn't lost my watch. I hadn't given it to anyone. I wore it up until the day I left. I was sure of it. But the man in the photo, whoever he was, had the exact same one. Same worn leather strap. Same cracked bezel near the 9. I suddenly felt like the walls were too close. Like maybe nothing in my life was ever real to begin with. Was it a copy? Was it someone I knew? Then I unfolded the letter, and my heart dropped further. It wasn't in Jessa's handwriting. Not even close. I'd memorized hers. The little loop on her Y's. The way she dotted her I's with angry precision when she was in a mood. This writing was slanted, aggressive, masculine. It said, "You left too quietly. Thought you were smarter than this. But you forgot what you really left behind." There was no name. No initials. Just that. I read it again and again, and each time the words grew heavier. Like they were less about warning me and more about reminding me of some debt I didn't know I owed. What had I left behind? I'd taken my documents, my laptop, my savings. I even remembered to wipe my old hard drives. I went back over my checklist, obsessively, counting every item in my mind like I was doing inventory after a fire. But then it hit me. I had forgotten one thing. Something small. Stupid. Something most people would never think twice about. But they had. And if they had it, if they read it, it could explain everything. I packed a bag. Not to run. To go back. Not to her. To the apartment. Because there was still one more thing in that house. One thing hidden where no one was ever supposed to look. And if it was missing? Then I wasn't just dealing with a cheating fiancé. I was dealing with someone who had planned this a long time ago. By the time I reached the apartment again, it was raining. Not a cinematic thunderstorm, but that slow, persistent drizzle that soaks your sleeves before you even realize it's happening. I parked 3 blocks away. Not because I had to, but because I didn't want my car to be seen outside. That probably says more about me than anything else. I was sneaking back into my own home like I was the one who had something to hide. I used the spare key, the one hidden under the chipped third brick near the bottom of the stairwell, a spot Jessa always laughed about. So obvious, she'd say, like something from a movie. Funny. I guess she liked things to feel staged. The door creaked the same way it always had. That comforting, familiar noise that now felt like a warning. Inside, the air was stale. Too quiet. She hadn't been here in a while. Or if she had, she didn't stay long. I noticed small changes immediately. The kitchen sponge was dry. Her favorite mug was missing from the dish rack. The throw blanket on the couch was folded perfectly, which she never did. She once said she liked it to look lived in, whatever that meant. I didn't waste time. I went straight for the hallway closet. Top shelf. Tucked behind a box labeled Christmas lights. I pulled it down carefully and reached inside, fingers grazing the plastic edge of an old VHS camcorder. Yeah, old school, I know. But I'd had it since college. Jessa always rolled her eyes at it, called it my sad nostalgia machine, but I used it anyway. Not for anything creepy. Just to record old conversations, private journal entries, things I never wanted to store on the cloud. Things I never wanted anyone else to find. The last tape I'd made, 2 months before I found the messages, was me talking about her. How I thought something was shifting between us. How I didn't want to admit that her silence wasn't from stress, it was distance. But the camera was gone. The box was empty. Just the old charging cable inside and a handwritten note on an index card in my handwriting from months ago. It read, simply, "For your eyes only." I stood there, still as stone, heart pounding in my throat. I checked again, under the shelf, behind the other boxes, in the duffel bag next to the vacuum. Nothing. My hands were sweating, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe properly. Then I checked the second hiding place, the one Jessa didn't know about. Back in the bedroom, beneath the false bottom drawer in my desk. That's where I kept the mini lockbox with the backup tapes. The drawer slid open, but stopped halfway. It was locked. I never lock it. I don't even own a key for that drawer. My brain started spinning. Either someone had been in here and locked it, or someone else installed a lock without me knowing. I reached for a screwdriver in the kitchen and forced it open with trembling hands, chipping the wood in the process. I didn't care. I pried it until the drawer popped, splintering like something was screaming underneath. The lockbox was gone. Every tape, every recording, gone. I slumped to the floor, dizzy. This wasn't about cheating anymore. This wasn't even about me. This was surgical, precise. It meant someone had gone through my things, methodically, deliberately, and taken only the pieces that couldn't be easily replaced. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, my phone buzzed. No caller ID. I answered without thinking. There was no voice at first, just breathing. Then, in a distorted, low whisper, "Still think you're the smart one?" Click. I didn't even have time to react before another text came through. A photo. It was me, from earlier that day, standing outside a diner, phone in my hand, looking down. I had no idea anyone had been watching. No one was supposed to know where I was. No one should have been able to take that picture. Unless Jessa wasn't just part of this. She was orchestrating it. And I was never her fiancé. I was her project. It wasn't just the photo that got to me. It was the angle, the precision, the timing. It was taken from inside a car. You could just barely make out the outline of the dashboard at the bottom edge, a dangling air freshener shaped like a pine tree swinging to one side. That detail haunted me for hours. Someone had been parked outside the diner long enough to watch me, aim, and wait until my head was tilted down, eyes on my phone, vulnerable. They wanted me to see it. Not just to scare me. No, that would have been too simple. This was about control. About telling me, "We know where you are. You don't know where we are. But we're watching." I didn't go back to the motel. I didn't even go back to my car. I walked 5 miles, through a half-dead neighborhood with flickering streetlights and those empty playgrounds that feel like crime scenes after midnight. I found a cheap 24-hour laundromat, bought a bottle of warm root beer from a machine that tried to eat my dollar, and sat in the corner next to a dryer that squeaked every 4 seconds. That's where I stayed until sunrise. Thinking, remembering, reconstructing the last 6 months. The more I thought about it, the more it became clear. This didn't start with the cheating. That was just the surface. A decoy. The rot went deeper. I started to see it, small things. The new people she met, through work, that she never named. The late-night design projects she claimed she was freelancing. The extra phone charger she bought that didn't match her phone. The receipt I found in the trash wasn't the first. Just the first one I was willing to see. And then came the worst thought of all. What if they were never targeting her? What if I was the mark from the beginning? I pulled out my phone and logged into an old email account I hadn't touched in months. One I used back in college, before her, before anything serious in my life. It was still connected to some online forums I used to lurk on when I was obsessed with surveillance tech. Hidden cams, GPS blockers, encrypted messaging, that kind of thing. I'd been a bit of a nerd for digital privacy back then. Ironically, I gave it all up once I got serious with Jessa. She said it was paranoid energy, and I wanted to be normal. I wanted to be trustable. Now I was using that same account to research burner numbers, message tracing, and how to detect microcameras. I found 3 apps that could scan for Bluetooth pings from hidden devices and ran all of them. Not surprisingly, 2 anomalies popped up near the location where I received that call. One of them pinged for less than a second, but it was inside the laundromat. They weren't watching me from outside anymore. They were close. That's when I made a decision. I was done being the prey. If they had been building a narrative around me, recording me, deleting evidence, rewriting the past, then I needed to start doing the opposite. I needed to build my own timeline. One they couldn't touch. So I bought 2 cheap GoPro knockoffs from a pawn shop 5 towns over, rigged them into my car, and linked them to a cloud storage that auto-uploaded every 20 minutes. Then I did the same with a pen recorder I clipped into the collar of my jacket. I wiped my browser history. I started rotating burner phones every 36 hours. I slept in different places each night. I kept my movements unpredictable, because if they were following a pattern, I wanted to break it. And then, just as I felt like I was gaining ground, I saw it. A new profile on my work directory. My name. My photo. But not my email. A fake. A double. I clicked on the profile. Whoever created it had signed up for multiple internal tools, chat logs, file transfers, meeting invites. My coworkers thought they were talking to me. Someone was impersonating me from the inside. They were rewriting me. They were erasing me by duplication. That's when I realized they didn't just want to humiliate me. They were building a clean version of me that never made a mess, never wrote a letter, never disappeared. And if they were doing that, it meant they were preparing to make the real me vanish completely. The fake profile didn't disappear when I reported it. That was the first red flag. I filed a support ticket through my company's internal system, flagged it for security review, even filled out the identity verification form they emailed me. Standard stuff. 2 hours later, I got a polite reply from someone named Tanya, who assured me the issue would be escalated appropriately. But when I checked again the next morning, not only was the profile still active, it had joined 3 more team projects overnight. It had even left a message in a group chat I was part of. Looking forward to syncing next week. Let's align on final assets. That's not something I'd ever say. I don't even talk like that. It wasn't just an impersonation. It was off-brand. And somehow, that made it worse. Whoever was behind it wasn't just trying to copy me. They were improving me, replacing me with a version that didn't make noise, didn't ask questions, didn't fall apart when his fiancé vanished behind a curtain of lies. This version smiled in meetings, submitted reports on time, and probably didn't sleep in parking lots with a camera strapped to his windshield. He was polished, compliant, and utterly fake. The moment I realized no one else noticed, that my coworkers kept replying to him, joking with him, trusting him, I understood the full scope of it. I wasn't just being followed or watched anymore. I was being phased out. Slowly. Systematically. They weren't coming to destroy me with chaos. They were replacing me with silence. I started leaving traps. Little things, at first. I changed the default language on one of our shared dashboards to Dutch. I rerouted a file path he was using to an empty folder full of cat memes I downloaded from Reddit. I created a calendar event that invited him, and only him, to a meeting in a non-existent room titled Conference Room Omega. It was petty, sure, but I needed to know something. Would he correct it? He did. 15 minutes after the invite went live, the meeting disappeared. The file path was restored. The language reverted to English. Someone, a human being, was actively managing the double. I wasn't dealing with an algorithm. This was personal. Someone was sitting behind a keyboard, pretending to be me, adjusting when I struck, covering their tracks with mechanical precision. So I struck harder. I went deeper than they thought I ever would. I accessed my company's deprecated backend server, the one I helped build back when I was still a junior analyst, and I found something I wasn't supposed to see. An access log. A full authentication history tied to my original credentials. There were 2 IP addresses. One was mine. The other? It bounced through 4 different countries, but it always ended in the same place. A tech co-working space downtown. I knew it. I'd been there once. Jess's friend used to work there. Miles, a UX designer with soft hands, and that smug startup vocabulary that made me want to punch air. I grabbed my jacket and left. I didn't take a car. I walked. Rain again. Always rain now, like it was part of the scenery they scripted around me. When I reached the building, I didn't go in through the front. I circled the alley and waited behind a dumpster, watching people come and go through the back glass doors. At 3:07 p.m., I saw him. Not Miles. Jackson. The guy from the photo. The one with my watch. Except he wasn't wearing it anymore. He was wearing my coat. Not a similar one. Mine. The same one I left in the apartment. The inside pocket still torn from when I caught it on a nail last summer. I saw the tear when he passed under the awning. He had AirPods in. He was smiling. And then, like something out of a dream, he pulled out my old notebook. The one I thought I'd lost months ago. The one with my sketches, passwords, private writings. I remembered the sticker on the cover, a faded triangle with the word quiet scribbled in lowercase marker. He opened it casually and started flipping pages. My pages. My life. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stood there, cold and soaked and hollow. Because in that moment, I realized the truth. They weren't just pretending to be me. They'd already become me. And the worst part? They were better at it. I waited until nightfall. The co-working space closed at 9 p.m. I watched Jackson leave at 8:47. He wasn't in a rush. He carried the notebook under one arm like it was his, not stolen. My coat still hung off him awkwardly, a little too big in the shoulders, sleeves a little too long. He wore it anyway, like he wanted to feel what it was like to be me, not just wear my clothes, not just copy my tone or steal my access. He wanted to slide into the space I used to occupy and live there, quietly, cleanly, without resistance. I followed him to a nearby parking garage, 5 levels down. He didn't know I was there. I stayed 2 rows back, always behind a pillar. Then, as he approached his car, a black sedan with dealership tags still on it, I stepped out. He froze when he saw me. For a second, I wondered if he'd run. But he didn't. Instead, he smiled, not cocky, not cold. Just a calm, flat smile like someone greeting a neighbor. "You finally showed up," he said. I didn't respond. He reached into his bag and slowly, carefully, pulled out my notebook. Then the coat. He held them both out like peace offerings. "No one was supposed to get hurt," he said. "You were drifting. She said you didn't even notice. That you wanted out." She. Jessa. I stood there, heart beating hard in my neck. But instead of lunging, instead of shouting, I took a breath. A real one. Deep, slow, honest. "Did you believe her?" I asked. He blinked. "No," he said. "Not really." But it was already in motion by then. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air was thick with things that would never be said. All the damage had been done. The files, the messages, the gaslighting, the silent reprogramming of my life. But suddenly, all I could think about was how tired I was of carrying it. The paranoia, the anger, the letters I wrote but never sent, the endless checking of shadows. "I'm not here to fight you," I finally said. He looked surprised. "I thought you wanted it back." "I do," I said, taking the coat and the notebook, "but not for revenge." He tilted his head, confused. "I'm not rebuilding the old me," I continued. "I'm building someone new. Someone you can't fake. Someone no one can." And I meant it, because somewhere along the line, I had stopped being myself, long before they started copying me. I'd shrunk, disappeared into routines, into silence. I'd let people define me as quiet, soft, forgettable. I thought that made me safe. But all it did was make me easy to overwrite. Not anymore. I walked away from him without another word. Got in a cab. Left the city. 3 months later, I live on the other side of the state. Different name. Same face. I work in a small, independently owned shop repairing clocks and watches. The irony isn't lost on me. People still wear time like a costume, but I finally understand how fragile it is. How real. One afternoon, I found an old Polaroid of myself in the bottom of a moving box. From years ago, back when I still smiled without calculating it. I framed it and put it above my workbench. Not because I missed that version of me, but to remind myself that no one gets to decide who I am but me. As for Jessa, I haven't heard from her. I doubt I ever will. I don't wish her pain. I don't wish her happiness, either. I just don't wish her anything at all. And that, I think, is the purest form of freedom.